I never understand how people like office life and offices, and I must know because I really lived it. I've been working in square cubicles, but look at this, hey, look at it. What would you choose? Office life or this? Sure, there's some people who really like it, but I can tell you that if they want you to come back to office, they will mostly bullshit you. Because this is also the life you could have if you would really want it, you know? This is the life of the way. Always go into the mountains because the mountains defy gravity. They rise. They go against the forces which pull them down. And that's why the mountains are said to have such a strong spirit. That's why the hermits always go into the mountains. And in the same way, if you go into the mountain, of course, you also become the mountain and you live in a mountain. And you will become stronger too. And it's very obvious in some ways that you need to go up and down. But also the spirit becomes a bit a part of you. I just really love that. Nature is always such a blessing because it's like a sponge. It sucks out all of the non-truth which you have in your head and all of that. And it just totally resets you and your energy becomes more calm again and more peaceful. But also it teaches you that it's not so easy. Life is not so easy out here. People always think, yeah, it's nice and joyful and that. It looks like it, but this is all combat here, all around the area. There are spiders being eaten by lizards, plants fighting for spots. Like, this is not peace here. So it also teaches you to be humble, because you see all these fights around you and you see how hard life really can be, you know, because in society we often believe life is hard. It's not hard what we have. It's nothing compared to what this is here. And by learning that, it really makes you humble to acknowledge that every moment you still have, where you have all arms and legs, where you don't need to hunger, where you have a good cup of tea, it's a blessing. It's a total blessing. It's such a beauty. And there's just so little more that you could wish for. We're giving this adventure. This adventure is the present which we are given. It's not getting to the goal. It's none like that. It's really just like music. That music is played because of the play. It's not about the end of the music. It's the same with movies. And this is the play here. We're meant to play this, to live this. This is the journey, is the true beauty, the music which we experience and need to feel. And the same is with everything, with the sword. In the swordplay is the beauty and the music. And that is just how everything functions and how the joy comes. The sword is an important object to me because it symbolizes in part to me always the ego I have, which also, as every ego, wants to get attention, wants to show off, and so forth. And that I need to sheath it, first of all, is that I need to, in a way, stuff it away a bit. Like I need to not let it out and wield freely because it can hurt people. You know, you can easily damage things if you go too crazy with your ego all around the place. It will just cause a lot of damage and yeah, it's not worth it. So one important thing is that you need to control first the ego. So you leave the sword inside. You don't put it out. You don't sheath it. And the second thing then is though, when you pull it, you need to control it. You need to wield it elegantly. And this is also how cultivation works, because the first stage of cultivation is you need to first reduce the ego. That's why the Buddhists are so strong about reducing the ego, because most beginners you meet are usually too entangled in worldly matters. They first need to get a bit easier about the things and goings, about life and death, you see. So you need to first control the ego, reduce it, you know, to show it a bit away. And the second part is then to take the ego out again. That is more advanced. That's, by the way, what many people also don't teach and do then. To take the ego out again, like you pull the sword. And then you start trying to integrate it into life, the sword. So you try to wield your ego, which you have, in a graceful, elegant, and adequate to the moment way. So you don't pull it in any moment. You don't twizzle it around however you like. You need to exactly learn how to control it and how to wield it. And it's quite funny because so many spiritual people, they always get stuck in stage one. They try to get rid of ego. But for as long as you live, you cannot get rid of ego. It's impossible because you're human. Like this body is the embodiment of ego. And it's not even that crucial. Like the first step is just to understand what ego is, to observe it and also to, you know, let go. But in the second phase, when you start reintegrating it, in a sense that you accept that you are just human, that you are nothing special, that there's not a single ingredient you have no other human basically has. We all have fear, we all have doubts. We all have this voice in our head telling us we're not good enough, you know. But the true art then becomes to understand that and to work with it and to reintegrate with it. And by that to elevate the spirit, to also a bit disattach from what you are, what you believe you are, this body. And by that you can gain higher levels of consciousness and higher levels of control over yourself, that fear doesn't grasp you so easily anymore, that death doesn't scare you so much anymore, that you can see it also as something beautiful. And it's just such a beautiful journey for me personally with the sword, because the sword is really the symbol of that it's something very dangerous like the ego, and you need to learn to control it, and then you can do very great things with it. But you always need to be aware that there is always a danger attached to it, and you should not play foolishly with these things. It's quite easy to do these things for show off and because they look cool and are nice. But you also won't progress that long if you just do it for the looks of it, and you won't get good too. You really need to love and appreciate it for what it is. And that's why it's so crucial to also practice a lot alone in places like these, as I do, without people around, without people seeing you. And it's the symbolism that you pick up the litter even when no one's looking for me. And that's why also I don't like to share this so much, is because in the past I was too afraid that I would get too easily attached to the ego, and that I would just make this a visual thing, and also having to deal with all the people then judging you by that. But I was also more weak-minded back then, because nowadays I now open a bit more up and I start showing a bit more to people. And I just give a dump for what they say. So I just do my thing. What always fascinates me quite a lot is how much something like the sword, which is a deadly weapon meant to kill, can elevate yourself and bring yourself to more peace. Because think about it, you practice something which is for destruction, which is for disruption, but it does the opposite. And it's just so beautiful, because this is the teaching that you can find yin and yang and yin, that in darkness is light and in light is darkness. And by searching for these, that is the path of cultivation, is searching for yang and yin and yang, that you can find true beauty in that, and always the opposites, that they can't eliminate each other. Even in the darkest places you will find the light. So it's something resembling also nature here, because everything around here is in a natural flux of combat and fighting and dominance and survival. And you see one tries to eat each other and one defends. And it is easily mistaken that this is about good and evil and all of that stuff. Because you see, when you fight, then you do something you would call sinister or dark, right? It seems like it. But at the same time, by practicing something like martial arts, people generally find peace. They find joy. And they find the light in the darkness. And that is what true cultivation is. Cultivation means not that you run around the yin and yang cycle, which means yin hunts yang and yang hunts yin. And what I mean by that is that if you're afraid, you run away. You don't run away. If you do cultivation, you look the fear into the eye. You look into why you are afraid. And it might be a good reason that you're afraid, but you look into fear's eye. And then you might understand why you are all of a sudden afraid in a certain situation. And you might learn something about yourself, how the world works. Maybe also something you had in your past that, I don't know, you were afraid of relationships because of your parents. I don't know. I witnessed many strange situations with people. And by that is then looking for yin and yang and yin. And it's so beautiful for me, because this is also martial arts. Because in combat and fighting and killing, you can find peace and beauty and an elevated spirit. The techniques I show you are freeform, which means I mix up different styles, which is majorly my precious Xingyi and Taiji sword styles. But please don't confuse that with true fighting with the sword. There's a lot more in my movements than you know and see. But don't believe just because something looks pretty that it's good. So enjoy it, what I'm showing you. And maybe in the future I can show you some more application and sword fight movements, but at the moment I don't have anyone around who really would be decent, to be honest, and it wouldn't look good. I would just trash on someone who has no experience, and that would be not fair. Please take it with a grain of salt what you see today. It will not tell you how good I am, and even if I would fight, you would really first see this difference, how good I am or bad I am. Be always careful with easy judgment in this sense. And I tell you that because I like truth. I like the hard truth. And the hard truth is, at some point, we're all pretty good. And to some degree, we're all pretty bad. But if you're genuinely in a growth mindset, you're always not good, because the sky has no limit. So don't concern yourself with how good you are. When you do fight with fists, that's one thing, because you have this closeness. But when you have this external object, when you fight with sword, you have something external in your hand. And the difficulty in the martial arts in that sense is that you need to integrate this external thing into yourself, into your body, that both act as one. And your fists and your hands and all of that, sure, they are always attached to you, but the sword is not really a part of your body, you know, so there's a big lesson there. And I never share this because it's no one else's business, in a sense of I work with myself and on myself through things such as the sword technique. For example, when I train the sword, what can happen is that it doesn't flow really good. I can't adjust. I struggle to get the sword in the right place and the right speed. And it is because I'm thinking too much, which I do a lot because it's my profession too. And I need to free myself, and the sword really helps me with that. Because the moment where I get my head to shut off, and I do that after lots of struggles. So first I struggle often when I train the sword. Then I get really annoyed by that, and at some point I can drop it. What happens is that I listen to the sword in that moment. Like the sword tells me where it wants to be, how fast it wants to go where the movement will end, that I can make the next movement. So it's a lot also about listening to the thing you have in your hand, which is not you, and make it a part of you through listening. And that is really difficult and takes a lot of time to practice, and I lose it regularly, but the sword keeps me on track, like a good friend reminding you all the time that you need to stay on top of that. I would just want to tell you all that I really love every one of you, and by sharing this and sharing a part of myself in that way, I want to also express a part of love from me to you, even though it's about killing, I guess.